In this lesson, we're going to work with really old photographs, ones that might not only be discolored and faded, but also might have some physical damage. This particular photograph qualifies as a really old photo, I would guess. This is a picture of my own dad. He was born in 1917, and I'm guessing that this was probably taken maybe 1923. Looks like he's about 6 years old. Maybe plus or minus 2 years. In any event, this picture is not only a little bit faded, but it has some spots on it that I'm not really sure what they're from. There's a hole up here in the top where it was probably put on a bulletin board, so that certainly qualifies as physical damage. Likewise, you can see where it's been bent and creased and just generally messed up. Also in this area, there's some sort of stain going on. I'm not really sure what that's from. This was probably taken in a studio, and again, I don't really know what its history is other than it's my dad. But the first thing that I'm going to do is come in and get rid of the fading, because back then there were only black and white photographs. So I'm going to come up into the image menu and come down into the mode, and while I scan this as a color photograph, I'm going to change it to grayscale, and that in one mouse click gets rid of any of the discoloration that occurred. Now we've still got plenty to do. Up till now we've worked with the clone tool, and the clone tool, I think you're probably very familiar with by now, allows us to come in and pick, like, say, a soft brush, hold down the control key and pick a sample point, and then clone other pieces of the image. However, I'm going to introduce you now to a cousin of the clone tool, and that's the heal tool. And the heal tool is just a little more powerful in that it works like the clone tool, but if you pay attention to your cursor size, it analyzes the pixels that surround the area, not just the area you've selected with the control key like in the clone tool, but it analyzes the pixels that are in the surrounding area and tries to interpret what should be there or what was there originally. So now with the clone tool and a relatively soft brush, I'll just pick an area here that's relatively free of those different specks, etc. And I'll just start to come in and clean things up. Now I'm not getting it all, but again, what you want to do is just hold down the control key and pick another sample area. I don't want to get on the hat there because GIMP doesn't know that that's a hat. I'm going to go to a smaller brush by holding down the left bracket, or I can come over here in the brush area of tool options, and again I'm going to just click Control, and this time just going to go ahead and pick another sample area by holding down the control key. And now instead of just dragging and holding the mouse button down, notice how the sample area is fixed. In other words, it's not following around the cursor, is it? So let's go ahead now and make the cursor larger. And again, I'll hold down the control key to pick my sample area. And actually I'm going to go to a harder brush here because I have a pretty uniform, clean area there. And now each time I click, like, hits it with a stamp of pixel purity. Now again, I sort of need to be careful here around the hat, but since I've got a hard brush, I can get real close to it. And I'm just going to come around here and clean up this area. I'm going to go to a larger brush now. To increase my area of pixel purity, hold down the Control key to get my sample. And just come through and start clicking. I'll zoom out here. So we've done a pretty good job of cleaning up the top half of the photograph, that is the background of it. I was able to get some of the damage repaired in this general area. Still got some more to do over here. But as I was repairing the damage, I noticed that the hat is fairly visible. So I'm going to see what I can do about that. I'm going to come into colors, brightness and contrast. Try turning up the contrast a little bit. Whoop, wrong way. And I don't see anything there. So that information is pretty much lost forever. So let's go in now and take a look at what we can do about some of these more difficult to repair, physically damaged folds and creases. Now it's time to come in and take a look at some of these areas where the photo was folded and the front side of it was actually torn. Brush size is everything when it comes to doing this little detail work. Fix the little stuff, the really hard, noticeable stuff, and then we can come in later on with a larger brush and do some more global changes. So at this time, I'm going to just go ahead and take and hold down the Control key and pick a spot and then move straight south and just kind of come along and drag. Now I can come up here and pick a purely perfect area, so to speak, and also just come in and click. I've got a pretty hard brush, but I'm still getting a little bit of shading in there because the healing tool is not quite sure how to interpret that. If I switch to the clone stamp tool and pick an area, now when I click, see the difference? I mean, it's cleaning it up because I have a hard brush and I had a hard brush before, but the clone tool is not quite as smart. So again, I'll pick a sample area here with a little softer brush, and it helps a little bit. But the heal tool really does a much, much better job. So I'll do some undos here. Switch back to the heal tool. And again, with a little bit of patience, I can get out a lot of this damage. I'll come and clean some of this area up. And there's a little bit of a difference of shading in this area as well. Not really quite sure what that's about. Let's go to larger brush size. I'm sure by now you're realizing that it can take a long time to clean up something that is this damaged. But how else would you do it? I mean, it's just great that we can do that. So now when we come into the chair here, I'm going to really zoom in here. I'm going to go to a really small brush. And I'm going to pick this area here. Now this is lighter on the left than it is over here on the right. So again, I'm going to pick a sample point north and just come in and clean up some of those pixels. Now this is a darker area. And again, I'm going to come down here. And it doesn't look perfect, at least not yet. Zoomed in this tight. But we're making good progress. Okay, let's go to this part of the chair. Notice how the cursor snaps back each time. That's not something that the clone tool does. We'll grab over here on the left. Let's go to a bigger cursor now. Oh, not quite that big. And I'll pick a point close to the damage. And I'll just kind of come down like so. So pretty good so far. So let's see, what else can we do? Oh, let's work in this area because this is really damaged. So again, we're going to go back to the heal tool. I have a medium hard brush. I'll pick this area and just clicking individually. Now I see some of the shadings coming in, so I'm just going to pick a fresh sample area. Now, what it's doing here, the reason we're getting that shading in there is that the healing tool's asking, what kind of pixels are around the neighborhood? Well, we've got the leg down here, and that's darker. So in this particular spot, it would be better to use the clone tool, because it ignores what surrounds it. It just literally copies what you ask it to copy. So now here I'm going to again choose the clone tool, because if I just follow what I think is the edge of the chair, I think a little larger brush might have been a good idea. Yeah, I'm getting some artifacts in here. Let's go above. Let's repair this area first. So that's pretty easy to do. So I'm just grab the heal tool, pick a sample area up here, and then just clean that up. And now I'm coming to the heal tool here. There we go. Now undo that. I'm not sure that I like that. Again, along this spot right here, just pick a sample point that is directly above what you want to repair. And then you can just paste like so. And let's go back out. And that's a whole bunch better than it was. See? The last area I want to look at before we sign off here and leave you to your own work is this hole right up here, because that's pretty devastating. Now, what makes it hard is that I just kind of have to assume that the hat comes across like this. I don't really know, because that part is washed out and lost forever. So what I'll do here is I'm going to repair this area in here first, again with the healing tool. Again, I'm getting a little bit of shading because it's looking around the neighborhood for any dark areas or any areas that are different. Now I'm going to make a larger brush and pick a sample area like right about here. I'm going to make the brush even bigger. And I'm just going to sweep across and try to follow where I think the brim of the hat would be. Let's come back down here. There we go. And the hole is gone. So I'm going to go through and finish this image up. I don't really have too much extra to add at this particular point in the way of new skills. I hope you're able to find an old photograph that you'd like to restore of somebody that's dear to you. I'll go ahead and finish this one up, and I look forward to seeing your restored really old photograph.